CJ Stroud's back, and obviously Tennessee can't spend their resources on worrying about Devin Singletary. They got to worry about Stroud in the passing game. And Singletary's going to get volume here. This time, Houston's at home. I like him for cash because the amount of work he'll get will give him that high, stable floor. I don't know what the ceiling here is. That's why I'm not putting him in a tournament option, because I don't see him as a multi-touchdown scorer here. All right, John, let's get to the next game. So another one. Philadelphia. They're playing the Cardinals. Now, Philadelphia got back to the easy schedule last week. Giants, they let that game sit close for a while before pulling away late. This time, the Cardinals. Cardinals can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They can't rush the passer. And their top receiver, Marquise Brown's on IR. Eagles still trying to figure things out, but they're still a dangerous football team. Tell us how you see this one.
Well, I think in this situation, Jim, Philly's going to prove a lot of the naysayers wrong, thinking that the Philly defense is not good enough to, get deep into the playoffs. They're obviously in the playoffs. They still have an outside shot for the number one seed should the 49ers stumble, especially in that last week matchup coming up next week against the Rams. So all is not lost for Philly, but if you listen to their local stations, which I tune into many regional stations throughout the week to get a sense of the pulse of the fan base and the betting community, it's very, very negative in Philly that, all is lost and the team's not as good as we thought they were. But you know what? Every single team goes through tough times during the NFL, and a lot of that's because of the parity. On any given week, things happen. We have a lot of upsets this year that were just mind-blowing and shocking to most. So it's part of how the league has been structured since the mid-'90s, and that's what keeps fans engaged, and it's made billions and billions of dollars by having so many teams still having a chance to make the playoffs. There's only 4 teams in each conference that are mathematically eliminated from the playoff contention. Granted, some of these teams need like miracles to happen that aren't realistic, but they still are involved, and it keeps the fan base pretty excited about their team. So the Eagles are one of the better teams in the NFL, yet the fan base wants to, basically kick them to the curb. And this is where teams like the Eagles and ones I've seen over the last 2.5 decades really come to play and play hard for all 60 minutes. Even if they get up 28-3, they're not going to take the foot off the gas because they want to get a solid win here. Then next week they play the Giants. And that if that happens, then they're the number 2 seed no matter what. So, there's a lot on the line here. Philly is the number 7 scoring offense at 26.1, despite the losing streak that they had of 3 games. They're number 5, gaining 363 yards per game. They're number 7 in points per play at .392. They are 10th, averaging 5.5 yards per game. And the one I like the best that a lot of talking heads overlook is the fact that they are number 2 in the league, Jim, in third down percentage conversion. And a lot of that is not the tush push. That usually happens on fourth downs where they are near 100%. I think they are 100% on that play, making first downs and moving the chains. Arizona doesn't have a chance in a snowball and you-know-where of stopping that third down situation, especially if it's 3rd and 2 or even 3rd and 3 in short. They're going to get that chain moved, and they're going to have a big advantage in terms of time of possession. So when the Eagles run the ball in a balanced offensive attack and have an edge in time of possession, which I think are almost guaranteed things to happen in this game, they win by double digits. So even though they're a 14-point favorite, I think they're just going to blow this team off the field. Granted, they have Arizona has Kyler Murray, but he doesn't have enough talent around him to stay in pace with the scoring that the Eagles are going to do. So I do see the Eagles really rolling in this game and, getting people in the Philadelphia region more excited about their team than they've been in the last couple of weeks. So I like Philly quite a bit here. And with these double-digit spreads, I always advise clients to bet live in-game. So bet 70% of your normal betting amount. So if you bet $100 a game, $70 pre-flop, and then take that extra $30. And if somehow Arizona scores the first touchdown, then jump on it. I mean, at that point, I think it's a gift. And it is the Christmas season. And of course, a gift doesn't always win either. You open up a gift, sometimes you go, why did that person give me that? But, over time, these things work, and I think Philly will roll.
Yeah, and again, it's a probability game, right? You just put probability in your
Yep.
favor, and that's the best that we can do here. Again, we don't have that crystal ball. If we did, everybody be winning $1 million in DFS every week or in gambling. But we give you an edge, and that's what we're looking to do. See, Alex is in the house, and Garrett's in the house. Funny, Garrett. I'll answer start sit questions at the end, but anybody who asks me kicker questions, I will tell you. I'm the last person in the world to offer kicker questions. Kickers require luck. I am the least lucky person you'll ever find. I'll give you solid analysis. There is no analysis on kickers. So I never will have a kicker for you because I will get it wrong every single time. Quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, receivers, gotcha. Kickers, no, I don't have you. All right, let's go to more DFS here. Wide receivers. Look, John just talked about the Eagles. AJ Brown, 8,600. I know it's a big price tag, but in a game like John said, where they want to really get themselves going on offense, AJ Brown is just a master stroke. Throw the ball his way and great things happen. You could see that big game coming back where he goes over $150, scores once or twice. That's in the range of outcomes. I would call him a GPP play though, because if he's not your safe cash play at that game. I mean, at that price, because if they get the running game going and do it that way, or they decide to get Devontae Smith going, so there's a volatility. So Brown's GPP. Chris Olave, 6,800 against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is likely to play with the lead in this game. No Marshawn Lattimore for them on defense, and the Bucs should be moving well. So Chris Olave is going to be needed to keep up on the scoreboard. Carlton Davis, one of the two corners, is out. Jamel Dean is playing, but Jamel Dean, in my mind, is not a good matchup for Olave. Jamel Dean will be better against a more physical type receiver. Olave can win in any particular way, and I think he outclassed him. 6,800 is a cheap price tag for a player who could put big production. I know I go to this well frequently, but DJ Moore last week, he dinged an ankle in the game. He's fine now, but he missed a number of snaps. Didn't have opportunity. The Bears are home against Atlanta. Atlanta is much better against the run than the pass. And no Darnell Mooney. Not that Mooney did anything, but Mooney was getting some targets. DJ Moore probably flirts with 8 to 10 targets here. And against this Atlanta defense, we've seen him have huge games with Justin Fields. We haven't had him in a couple of weeks, but they have been there. And this game is one of those situations we can see that again. Next one is a GPP only. We know the drill. Gabriel Davis. In the last 5 games, he has 3 goose eggs, but he has 2 games over 20 fantasy points. He's 5,500. New England this year against wide receiver twos have been awful. One of the worst teams in the league against wide receiver twos. Despite Stephon Diggs not playing great lately, you know the focus is going to be on slowing him down, making sure he doesn't beat them. And, of course, they play well against the run. This is not a great matchup for James Cook. What does that leave us with? It leaves us with Gabe Davis. And New England is good against tight ends, so really Davis stands out. But he's GPP only because we never know when those goose eggs are hitting. Oh, Garrett, that's funny. Thank you for you have a good one as well. All right, this one's dart throw, saving some money. Brandon Johnson. Cortland Sutton is out. Last week, Brandon Johnson was the 1-to-1 replacement for Cortland Sutton in that game. He was 3 for 47 and a touchdown on 5 targets. They're playing the Chargers. He's 3,300. Jared Stidham is the quarterback. Not super excited about that, but I don't think they're going to be able to just run. They're going to have to throw some. And based on the structure of the offense, with Johnson playing in the Sutton role, and Judy's banged up, not that he's been doing anything. Mims is banged up. So at 3,300, it's a nice dart throw. One more dart throw. Richie James of the Chiefs is 3,000 against Cincinnati. So last week, Sky Moore's on the IR, not that he was any good, and Kadarius Toney's out again. Richie James was seeing snaps and seeing targets last week. Wasn't a big game, but he is a very refined slot receiver who could be utilized in this game. So at $3,000, I think he's a nice dart throw because I would not be surprised if he got 6 targets in this game. All right, tight end. John talked about that Philadelphia and Arizona game. Well, we know, like John said, Arizona's going to trail a ton here. Trey McBride is 5,900. Now, last week, the Bears did a nice job, 6 for 31 they held him to. But otherwise, McBride's usually 80 yards or more a game. They're going to have to throw. Philly's very weak against the tight end. He's the only legitimate passing game weapon that Kyler Murray has right now. He should see double-digit targets in this game. And if the Eagles are so far up, we could see a ton of garbage time. Next, Evan Ingram, 5,700 against Carolina. Trevor Lawrence isn't playing. But when I look at it this way, backup quarterback C.J. Beathard is going to have to throw to somebody. Evan Ingram is a safety blanket. Tight end, they run him on a lot of horizontal routes. This should work very well for him against Carolina. Carolina's a good pass defense, but the way Ingram is deployed, it'll be tough for him not to see 6 or 7 catches. Isaiah Likely, 4,600 against Miami. Like John said, Miami should hold down the Ravens pretty well, but Miami does give you that middle of the field. It's that Vic Fangio cover 2 high shell defense. They'll give you underneath. Isaiah Likely's 4,600. He could be the leading receiver in the game for that team. Let's go one more GPP. Juwan Johnson. Again, this is a dart throw. GPP only, 3,400 at Tampa. So last 2 weeks, Taysom Hill has seen a snap share go down to about 16 to 18%. Juwan Johnson last week played over 70%, 7 targets, scored 2 weeks in a row. This game is one I expect New Orleans to trail. Juwan Johnson's a dart throw because he is a good red zone option. Defensive special teams. The Bengals, 2,600 against the Chiefs. Don't need to say much more. Patrick Mahomes is making all kinds of mistakes. The Bengals have done very well against him in the past. Lou Anarumo understands what Mahomes wants to do. They're a nice little cheap option. And otherwise, even in that Ravens-Miami game, that John, I do agree Miami could come out and win this game. The Ravens, 2,800. Tua will make some mistakes against them. And so we could see a couple sacks. We could see a couple picks. Even if the Dolphins' running game wins the day, the Ravens may not be a bad play. All right, we have one more. If anybody has start-sit questions, you can go throw them in the chat. We'll get them after the last pick. John, tonight's game, big contest between the Lions at the Cowboys. That's important. Dallas at home, they've been very good this year, but we've seen a lot of problems with them. That defense that was really great earlier in the season, they haven't been good for about a month. And I know they played some tough opponents, but that's what it's all about. The Lions, very well-coached team. And you know they watched film. When Buffalo beat Dallas, it was with a power running game. They got cooked to the outside, but it was power running. There aren't many teams that can do power running better than the Lions with that offensive line and that combo of Montgomery and then Gibbs using some speed option off of that. How do you break this game down, John?
Well, that's a great introduction to the game because what has been the recipe against the Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons? It's been simple. You run right at him. And what did Detroit do? Well, they can run right at him. So I think he's going to be neutralized. And if I expected the Detroit Lions to win this game, they're going to have to be successful doing that. So early on in the game, that's a matchup to definitely watch on the TV. A lot of times I watch a game, Jim, and I'm sure you're the same way, where you're not watching the ball necessarily. You're watching individual matchups. You're watching what maybe the tight end is doing in terms of a blocking scheme when they run the ball or on play action pass. How long does he engage in a short-term block on a left tackle, for example? And that gives you a lot of information where they're going to be successful, at least for the first half of action until the defense adjusts. It's a massive chessboard type of game. There's always changes being made constantly. Every single series these guys run, and I think the fans sometimes miss that point. It's a complicated process, and sometimes the changes don't work, and they look awful in a particular series, but then they adjust again. And then all of a sudden they score a touchdown, but the fans think they're running the same offensive scheme when they're running something that is light years different than what they were doing at the start of the game. So Detroit does that really, really well. And I think they can keep that defense, which you have said accurately has not been what the defense has been in the beginning of the year. So with that, you get the running game going, then what happens? You get play action pass situations. You get Laporta involved in the offense, and all of a sudden the Cowboys are on their heels. Another point here, I think the market is telling us the bet is the Detroit Lions because Dallas has beaten these guys 7 times in a row. Detroit has not beaten the Cowboys since 2011. So why is Detroit only a 5.5-point road underdog against a team that is averaging 40 points per game at home? You know, you can't take that away from the Cowboys. A small sample size, but the thing that I don't like about that offense is that they're very inconsistent, and they're very, very inconsistent on the road. They only score 20 points per game on the road, and that is going to haunt them in the playoffs unless they get it fixed. I also think that when you score 40 points per game for a whole season at home or away, I don't care where it is, it could be on Mars, you are prone to regression, and there is no better time for the Cowboys offense to struggle. And all they have to do is struggle a little bit against this Detroit Lions team, and they're going to be in trouble. So, of course, the Eagle fans will be watching this game tonight on Saturday. It doesn't mean that if they win against Arizona, they have this thing locked up, but it would just about clinch the NFC East division title, knowing they have the Giants next week on the road in New York. So things are looking bright for the Eagles, I think, and especially if Detroit wins this game, the Eagle fans will maybe they'll become Detroit Lion fans too.
Oh
They
my
should
gosh.
at least send them a thank you note if this does happen. Some coaching trends here for Coach Campbell too are pretty strong. Coach Campbell's 33-15 in all games he's coached for Detroit. He's 21-10 as an underdog as the coach of Detroit. He's 25-9 in games played on turf. He is 13-1 after having won 2 out of the last 3 games. So when they get momentum, this team doesn't just win one game and then lose the next. They usually roll pretty well. They've had 4-game winning streak this year and a 3-game winning streak. That's 7 games out of the 17-game season that were on winning streaks. They have won 2 in a row, and I don't see any reason in the world why they can't make it 3 in a row here. And I think the line is telling you at only 5.5, given the situation where the public is going to be all over Dallas, and they may be right, but when it's that euphoric that Dallas is going to blow these guys out, it gets my attention to be a contrarian bet. Lastly, Campbell is 17-3 with 1 push when facing an excellent offensive team that's completing 64% or more of their passes on the season in games played in the second half of the season. And that's a powerful trend, and I can't go against it. So I'm on Detroit, Jim. Win or lose, I think they're the correct bet.
I mean, and it's a good number of points. It's over a field goal. I mean, that is solid number for 2 really good football teams. Each have flaws, but each are very good teams. And this would be a great one to watch. John, my biggest preseason bet that I pushed anywhere I could was the Browns plus 120 to 130 to make the playoffs. I was so excited they did it before the sweat really hit in. Obviously, there was the first game of week 17, but they're in. And that was with all that adversity. And I really wish this team would have not had the same level of adversity they had, because I only could imagine how good they could have been had everything worked out there with Nick Chubb especially. But all that said, it is what it is. John Ryan, so 3 great bets for today. I threw some DFS. I only have 1 question, so I got to just take that right now, and then we'll sign John off and find out where we can find John's great work. So C-Matt Gold, 2 leagues, both PPR. Yes, a flex question. Zamir White, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, Demarcus Robinson, Jalen Warren, and Gabe Davis. So look, Zamir White is going to be really tough to sit here because we see it with the Raiders. I mentioned this earlier in the GPP or not the DFS section. Indy has not been stopping the run, even with Grover Stewart back. And the Raiders want to run the ball and they want to play defense. And I think they're going to be able to keep this game close enough where he's relevant. So his floor and his ceiling are great. Metcalf's always a great play, but Pittsburgh plays a lot of man coverage. Joey Porter, 6'3", is not a tiny corner, and I do expect he'll see Metcalf a lot. And with that pass rush, I do worry about Geno Smith. Of course, Metcalf's boom bust because of that. Kenneth Walker, I don't know if he plays. He's a legitimate game time decision, and that sounds like he's well less than 100%. Demarcus Robinson, he's been great, scoring, 4 straight games. Can't trust him over Zamir White's volume, though. Jalen Warren, we're only seeing 9-10 touches a game. Zamir White probably sees double that. Gabe Davis, like we said earlier, he's just as likely to get a 0 as he has a 20. He's like a completely volatile play. So I think the safe play with ceiling is Zamir White. And then your last one is James Cook, Montgomery, or Zamir White. Montgomery's snap share is unfortunately getting low, but his floor is really, really good. And I do expect against Dallas, you can bury them with the power running game. So I know Montgomery's workload isn't great, but again, Zamir White probably sees more work than Montgomery. I think Montgomery's more likely to score a touchdown. James Cook, I do worry about him against New England. New England's been lights out against the run. I do think they have answers for him. This is a complete gut call by you. I am going to go with Montgomery because I do believe his floor is very, very high in this game, and there's multi-touchdown upside. John Ryan, there's one last question. Is Alvin Kamara, is he a play? The last time he played Tampa, 13 catches for only 33 yards, but 13 catches was 13 catches. There was that. I think he rushed for 51 yards. So it was 84 yards, 13 catches. Alvin Kamara has a floor. And he may not see 13 catches in this game, but he probably does see 6+ catches. And I think there's a lot of value in that. Overall, it's not a very good matchup. Their right tackle, Ryan Ram, checks out. That doesn't help them at all. But I think Alvin Kamara is solidly in the running back 2 range. All right, John Ryan, tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
Well, you can find me over at Rotowire.com each and every week doing NFL and college football, and also at thepredictiveplaybook.com, where I also feature NBA, which is doing pretty well, and college hoops is heating up as well. Obviously, when the football season ends, especially the conference championship games that are coming up, there'll be a lot more action with college basketball heating up with the conference schedules beginning. So you may wonder why I have a Penn State sweatshirt on. It's because I have a pretty big play on Penn State today. They're going to be starting in 27 minutes, kickoff time against Mississippi. One of the matchups now in college football, even though this is an NFL show, are pretty exciting. A lot of these players are opting out for the NFL draft, but they are still playing in the game, which I admire greatly. That just shows dedication and commitment to your team that help you get to the NFL draft after all. So this game should be a real barn burner and really a lot of fun to watch. So take it in, and I'm on Penn State. And I'll have a 10-unit NFL play tomorrow. So if you want to get that, I'll give it to you free. Just send me a direct message over on the X at John Ryan Sports 1. We're on an 8-0 run. That doesn't mean we're going to go 9-0, but we're on an 8-0 run with 10-unit plays. 7-0-1 if you pushed with Miami last week. A lot of my clients had -1.5. That game, it pushed. It didn't lose. So we're on a pretty good roll here, Jim, and I think I like the game quite a bit that I have set up for tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome stuff. John, one question for my friend Josh Fiskai, who's a friend of mine who also is very good at college football handicapping. He likes Georgia -20 in their game against Florida State, obviously without their quarterback. How are you thinking on that game? Any quick
I don't have a play on it. It's very hard to handicap that game for the simple reason that Florida State got, out of it. They're undefeated team, Conference 5, Power Conference champion. So they have a chip on their shoulder about the size of Mount Everest. So you can't quantify how these kids are going to perform, but I do know the backup quarterbacks at Florida State, they're probably the deepest team in the nation at the quarterback position, maybe with the exception of USC. And we saw what that kid can do with Moss throwing 6 touchdowns in that bowl game for a record. And he's a freshman. So I think Florida State plus the 20. That's how I would play with pizza money. But, Georgia is the 2-time national champion, right? So they're used to being in the championship game. They're used to being in that Final Four. They could have a letdown, but at the same time, they may want to just show the world that, hey,
yes,
we lost one game and we should have been in there instead of Alabama. Sorry. But, it's hard to quantify that game, bottom line.
Yeah, no doubt. John Ryan, great stuff as always. John will be back next Saturday, week 18. If you want your start, sit questions answered, come to this exact show tomorrow, 11 a.m. I got you covered. I'll give you the whys. You can make your best lineup decision. If you have Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel 87, tune in today from 1 to 3 Eastern. I'll be on with Mario Puig. We'll be going over specific player performance in each NFL game, those tough start, sit questions. Sunday, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel, 9 to 10 Eastern. Go over the late night, overnight injury news and any big game storylines. All right, everybody. Good luck. Happy New Year. For John Ryan, I'm Jim Coventry. Good luck and have a great day, everyone.